Om Dyau Shanti Randariksham Shanti Prithvi Shanti Oshadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti. Let there be peace in the hearts of all. Let there be peace in oceans, in waters, rivers, and mountains. Let there be peace everywhere. Om peace, peace, peace.
Thank you, Maharaj. I'm going to have about an hour's Q&A, which is often the most robust and wonderful portion of our program. Just as a set of reminders, there's an opportunity here to frame your questions in a way that promotes the subject, and rather than as a platform for the usual things that we hear in society, this is in a way a special place for the exploration of inner peace. The subject today, of course, was One World, Many Paths, Interfaith, Spirituality, and World Peace. And we heard devotees yesterday speaking on their journeys towards inner peace, and many of them resonated with me overnight. And this may hopefully be your happy experience as well, as you, inevitably review in your minds some of the things that you may hear today and apply them, hopefully, fruitfully in your own lives. We heard from Professor Indranil Sen Gupta, Sacred Values in a High-Tech Age, Spirituality, Innovation, and World Peace. And he gave his fascinating talk on mathematics and the varieties of absences and the consequences of that. We also heard from Michael Pappas, Global Peace through Inner Peace, an interfaith perspective. Michael has that special position as executive director of the San Francisco Interfaith Council. And he spoke about everything from Saint Seraphim to shared brokenness, the wounded healer, and the gift of the freedom to choose. And thirdly, we heard from our Maharaj, Swami Tattwamayananda ji, on the evolution of interfaith relationships and the vision of spiritual convergence and world peace. So he spoke of three types of convergences: intellectual, ethical, and spiritual. He spoke of everything from universal spiritual humanism to Transcendentalists in America, and even the configuration of the flag of the nation of India. So the ushers will have the microphones for your questions. You'll see them scattered throughout the tent. And I'm encouraging you to raise your hand, and I see some hands going up. And feel free to direct your question to all of the speakers or a single speaker as appropriate.
Hello, namaste. Thank you so much for all the inspiring speeches. I have a suggestion, a brief suggestion and a question for Dr. Sen Gupta. My suggestion is you should invite the G7s and G20s to the Olema here, and that's a sure path to world peace. Secondly, my question to Dr. Sen Gupta. Sir, and you and Dr. Pappas also spoke very well about inner peace. To scale it up to world peace or global peace, you're in an excellent situation, sir, Dr. Sen Gupta, with access to so many young minds. Hope you're already training the young minds to scale it up from inner peace to world peace. Perhaps by each one of them talking to 10 more people like that, and each one of them go to 10 more people, pretty soon you'll have a big movement like Swami Vivekananda envisioned. So I hope to hear more from you about that, Dr. Sen Gupta. Thank you.
All right, so to repeat the question, which is directed to Professor Sen Gupta, what about as a mathematician, he's asking about the exponential value of spreading peace throughout the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a very good suggestion, and would definitely try to do that. But well, I'm just trying in my own humble way. I think, yeah, I mean, you all should pitch in, and we should help make this thing happening. So my idea is when we are trying to have the world peace. So why should we have peace in the very first place? I mean, as Swami Vivekananda mentioned, that if I can steal things from others and make more wealth, why not have it? Because the answer is in Advaita, that all of us are essentially, in essence, we are one. So if you are hurting someone, you're eventually hurting you. As Bhagavatam, there is a famous passage which says that if you're biting the tongue with the teeth, so would you scold your teeth, and would you say that, or would you destroy your own teeth? No. It's all of us are eventually, so we are essentially, in essence, we are one. So as long as we are understanding and spreading the message of Swami Vivekananda and the unity of religion, and essentially all that we are seeking for are one, then we are definitely going toward a world peace. That's my opinion. Thank you.
I'm going to follow up with a question on that. Never mind. Is there a question from the audience?
My question is to Maharajji. First of all, thank you, Maharajji, for sharing your wisdom. It was very enlightening. My question is, like, as you said, like there are multiple paths, all taking it to one destination. That perfectly makes sense. But for us as a guide, which path do you think as a common person I should take? And while traveling on that path, what guardrails should we incorporate? And why you are recommending that path? So, yeah, this is my question.
You address to me? Okay, so I will begin my answer by referring to an interesting episode mentioned in some of the unpublished manuscripts, which contain descriptions of life in the old temple during the time of Swami Tattwamayananda. A brief introduction. Swami Tattwamayananda was sent to San Francisco by Swami Vivekananda, and he came to San Francisco and built the first Hindu temple in America, in the West. In 1905, it was completed. It is in Webster and Filbert Street. There are a few letters mentioned in the unpublished documents, which are deposited in that box, the archival box, which he had planted at the basement of the old temple, which we unearthed at the time of renovation, and we put it back there. Some Americans came to Swami Tattwamayananda and asked him to convert them to Hinduism. So he asked them, why should I convert into Hinduism? So they said, we are interested in Vedanta, we are interested in the universal values. Then he told them, there are universal values in your own religion, your own tradition. Only you should be able to discover them. In every religion, there are some universal spiritual values. So there is no way of recommending any special path. Whatever may be the religion you are born into, which you have been practicing for years since your birth, whatever your inherited tradition that you are born into, that you continue. And there is no question of any special religion being superior to any other religion, not at all. The very idea of choosing any specific path, giving up your own path, is totally ridiculous in Vedantic tradition. There are universal Vedantic ideas in every single religion. So to give an example, If you read the Sermon on the Mount, some of the parables of Jesus Christ, if you read some of Dhammapada Buddhism, you find many of those teachings are the same as you find in the Vedas, in the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, which they came much earlier, that's all. So, what to choose, the very question doesn't arise. So, if you give a universal dimension to our own approach, the way we understand or try to understand our own religion, then you find you'll be discovering the diamonds, the gold mines in your own tradition that you follow. As I mentioned, don't reject rituals and practices, but transcend them. You have to transcend the kindergarten to reach the primary school. You have to transcend the primary school to the city college. You have to transcend the city college to the university. So like that, if you go on evolving in spiritual life, you'll find one day we'll end up being a Vedantin. That's the true meaning of Vedanta. The universal spiritual teachings that are found in all traditions that do not recognize boundaries of nationality, race, or culture. So I shall end up this, I mentioned this morning, if somebody claims to be a very religious person and he talks terrible things, does terrible things, it's a bad publicity for his God. His God will be very ashamed to come out and to be seen in public because this man is doing terrible things in my name. So that God will be happy to dissociate with him. It's a bad publicity for him. So try to give good publicity to your own God by becoming a truly spiritual person. Thank you.
I want to punctuate that from personal experience. I meet a lot of people, and they will say, I have moved into a zone of spirituality that I'm very, very enthusiastic about because it's so full of love. It's so full of love, and now I am so full of love, unlike that horrid birth spiritual tradition I was born into. That tradition is not full of love, and I hate it because they made me do this and they made me do that. But now I'm full of love, except for that. Not my experience. My experience was that the varieties of explorations that I made were illuminated and highlighted and accentuated by the flowering of universal spirituality. So what the Vedanta teachings afforded me was an even greater appreciation of the paths that I had strode. Any other additions?
I would just, we're having a conversation right now around our boardroom table about the issue of Christian nationalism. And we approach it with great humility. And yet, I think that there are political movements who are taking advantage of the Achilles heel, if you will, of those. There are those who stand very strong in their dogma and doctrine. It was something you raised earlier today, Swami Tattwamayananda. And it was interesting because we are an interfaith organization. We not only had this conversation, but we're going to pursue a broader conversation on this. And it was interesting to get the perspectives of even non-Christians to what is happening with the Christian nationalist movement. I think it's more a political movement than a religious movement. And I think that we need to be very vigilant in calling that out with love. But to recognize that, sometimes people do things in the name of faith that are not so noble. And I think to not acknowledge that is negligence on our part.
Maharaj, I want to ask you to elaborate on this idea that the political minefields that spiritual life finds itself amidst. In other words, we're trying to transcend politics with our spirituality, but there is that context that, that Michael referred to.
So one way to confront this problem is to emphasize the universal, the commonalities that you find in all traditions. There are great teachings in all traditions. Try to identify with them. And there are, unfortunately, very tribalistic ideas, which I vaguely referred to this morning. For example, interpreting every single comma, semicolon, word and spelling that you find in some books, very ancient books, and you say every comma was written by God, came from God. Every semicolon, don't change it. So if you blow out thousands of people, no problem. But if you change a comma, there's a terrible problem. Great blasphemy. If you kill the name of God, that is not blasphemy. But if you change one letter, that is blasphemy. So actually you are humiliating that very God whom you claim to be a worshipper of, or that you believe in. So the best way to do that, to emphasize, to stress the universal teachings. In all traditions, there were great, remarkable men and women, great spiritual personalities. So there should be the examples. So one, I would say, a blessing in Hindu tradition is you need not say that every word is coming from God. I tell you, one example I can tell you historically. You know, Dr. Ambedkar is considered to be the father of the Constitution of India, which has taken clauses and ideas from American Constitution, the conventional unwritten British Constitution, from French Constitution, even from Soviet Union's Constitution, it had taken positive ideas. This man, Dr. Ambedkar, literally he burned the most ancient law book of Hindu tradition, Manusmriti. Hindu tradition has got almost some 36 ancient law books, right from 2nd millennium BC up to around 8th century, 7th century AD. Almost for 3,000 years, the number of constitutional books were called Smritis were written. And the most ancient one is Manusmriti, which contains many unacceptable, totally toxic ideas, and which also contain many great teachings also. To give an example, etra naristu bhujande tatra deva ramandicha etra edasna bhujande tatra sarva phala kriyaha. Some of them are noting they are familiar with this. What it says is, wherever women are honored and respected, that country is blessed. That nation is blessed. Gods are happy in the heavens. One statement. There are also statements which are totally different, limiting freedom. So what this man did, the father of Indian Constitution, with the chairman of the Indian Constitutional Assembly, he burned it in front of Bombay High Court. That happened in 1920. That man was made the chairman of India's Constitutional Assembly by the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, in 1947. He framed India's constitution. Because he could burn that, because there were some unacceptable ideas, but nobody fought against him, nobody quarreled with him, nobody threatened him. Because those ancient law books have no real value in modern times. They contain some wonderful ideas. They also contain some not so very wonderful ideas. So what happened? That man was not imprisoned. Nobody hated him. He was elevated to the position of the father of Indian Constitution, Dr. Ambedkar. Even now, he is the most celebrated legal luminary of Indian constitutional tradition. I used to discuss this matter with Bobby Colvin, who happens to be a law graduate from Columbia. So that's very interesting. Thank you for that.
On the
Thank you.
On the issue of religious tolerance, just to share a story, it might sound funny, and maybe we need some levity, but when I was a newly ordained Greek Orthodox priest, I was in a very immigrant parish in Chicago, and we had a parochial school, and from the youngest kindergartner to the 8th grader, they would line up in their uniforms before major holidays and come to confession. And one little kindergartner was struggling to make his confession in Greek. And I tried to assure him he could say it in English. And he shook his head in consternation, and he said, "I'm not able to." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because my mommy said God won't understand." It's funny and it's sad because things get passed down generation to generation. And interestingly, we just went up, we had this beautiful, my Mustang made it up the hill, and we were able to go to the shrine of Vivekananda there. And we were talking about really 1920, the Parliament of the World's Religions.
1893.
1893. This was revolutionary because in my lifetime, when I was young, we were not allowed to go into a Catholic church. We were going to get struck down by lightning. And that revolutionary spirit, that interfaith spirit existed at that point is really a testimony to goodwill. It's a testimony to being able to look into the face of the other and see the image and likeness of God and to see the universal. And I think that that's what we're here to celebrate today. So,
Michael, in 1893, the only Mustang going up that hill was a horse. And yet, there were elements around that were advanced enough to appreciate what you just said. You know, many of my friends here in the audience are in creative fields, and creative fields would include science and mathematics and engineering. I don't see those as siloed disciplines, but also in music and poetry and singing, where, as Swami Tattwamayananda ji just said, if you were to try to do it literally, like a metronome, or not able to put your own loving heart into it, with the gift of the freedom to choose, as Michael Pappas referred to this morning, then you won't have music worth listening to. You won't have poetry worth sharing. It would be DOA. It wouldn't be creative art. And those of us who tread those boards, we show up for that. That's what we're there for, so that we can receive that. The idea that you would somehow go by the books with the kind of dogmatic approach that Swami cautioned us about both this morning and just now is anathema. We would not want to do that. AI cannot replace that. Next question, please.
First of all, thank you, and this is my first time here. And just to building upon the previous question, maybe it is echoing. Maybe it's okay now? Okay.
help is on the way.
Yes, stand by. But if you go into the aisle, the usher can help you with the microphone.
Okay, that's much better. All right, building upon the previous concept again, all paths leading to the same destination. So how do you reconcile the concept of spreading religion, missionaries? Where does that fit in? And that's usually the cause of conflicts when you want to promote one versus other.
Well, let me make it very clear. We're not here to convince anybody or to proselytize anything.
Our organization came into being in response to a crisis in San Francisco. In 1988, there was an emerging homeless crisis. It was the aftermath of the Reagan policies where folks were let out of institutions. And so much of what we do is based on service. And interestingly, when you can get a lot of different people from a lot of different faiths to serve, they will, it's an interesting phenomenon, because somebody might never pick up a book on the Hindu faith or beliefs, and all they're going to know about Hinduism is what they see in you. And I think that, so then, no pressure, but you're an ambassador. And I also think that through service, you build relationships of trust that are foundational to authentic dialogue. So we are less involved with dialogue, I would say, and yet we're doing dialogue by faith in action. And in the process, hopefully, to the advancement and the betterment of our city and our society. But in the realm that we exist in, proselytism is not an option. And yet, when we're at the same table, they say if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. But if you're at the table, it's very difficult to look at the person across the table and to demonize them. We have my office is in the lower level of the main post chapel at the Presidio. And because of where it is, the United States State Department has an international visitors program, community leaders program. And so they bring delegations from all over the world just to see how we do what we do. And I remember there was a delegation of sheikhs from Saudi Arabia. And these poor fellows, they overbooked them. And so they showed up not having had lunch. And the founder of my organization and we went into the little kitchen we have, and we found these falafels that were in the icebox, God knows how long, and we put them in the microwave and we brought them out. And one of the sheikhs said, "Now we are a family because we're sitting around a table and having a meal, just like we had the soup today. We are a family when we do that." And so I think when you are doing work together, it takes some of the sting or some of the mistrust out. That's what I would say. Is that a fair answer?
That would be the ultimate spirit.
Yes, okay.
Well, I would say that there's a sort of ambient idealism in action that's here in the Bay Area. That goes way back. This society was founded by Swami Vivekananda ji in 1900. And as Swami Tattwamayananda ji said, the old temple's the oldest Hindu temple outside Asia, built in 1905 in San Francisco. San Francisco's also, we tend to forget this, but the UN Plaza commemorates the founding of the United Nations in San Francisco. So what's going on in San Francisco? I have a New York accent, but I long ago learned, maybe 40 years ago, that the winds blow eastward. These are the lungs of the continent here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so whatever we do, however we learn to love and express that, does influence the North American continent in some way. We can sort of breathe that in, breathe that out, and as Maharaj referenced, we're really one spiritual family anyway. So just by being here, I think that vibration does have its impacts. We don't have to force any thoughts on anyone. That would not be useful. In fact, the pushback would be very severe. Next question, please. Over here. Not yet. Oh, now we're hearing things we don't want to hear.
Okay, yeah, I think this is better.
Just a reminder, I haven't been briefed, but I hope you will so that we can hear the answers.
Okay. Yeah. So first and foremost, thank you panelists and organizers for such a reflective and energizing day. Like, this is my third year I've been coming, and I really find it very reflective. I think the concept of inner peace to global peace, I think it's the right thing for us to strive. But if you just take a step back, isn't conflict so much part of human nature? Even if I put aside human, conflict is part of nature. If you look at it, right, like there is this constant cycle of destruction and creation, and it just goes on, right? So while we may strive for peace, which we should, I think like we are ultimately a reflection of nature, the human mind, right? We like that divisive nature is just part of us, because ultimately it's reflected in every aspect of nature. The fact of the nature was it came from Big Bang, which was the biggest destruction, right? And even if you look at like nature in the wild, right? Like there's this constant cycle that goes on. So ultimately, is it more around the equilibrium that we want to establish? And like attempts like this will help us at least become more aware, but it'll take its own course.
I'm going to jump in on that, because there's a couple of obvious things when you engage in advanced study. One is that when you, or let's say you're in an MBA program, you're going to study not conflict, you're going to be studying conflict resolution. You're going to be studying things like negotiation. You're going to try to get past the adversarial thing to what works. The same thing happens in the law. You don't want to just have endless lawsuits and conflicts. As a matter of fact, if you can get off that track and divert it into alternative dispute resolution, you've gotten somewhere. Now, your question is, are we stuck with the natural conflict? Well, I think that from my understanding, we mature past the squabbling of children into adult restraints and an understanding that we do have common interests and a common goal that relies on peace and harmony.
If I, would you like to? You've been quiet so far.
So, can you hear me? Okay. I think the struggle that you mentioned, Big Bang, and it's all emotion in action, that will be there. That was there, and that will be there, and it is always there. But the idea is the peace, right? So we all are seeking for the peace, the inner happiness. To quote Swami Vivekananda, or to paraphrase him, so it's like a dog's curly tail. We are trying to straighten it. Will it be straight? No. There will be struggle. There was struggle in the universe. There will be struggle. No matter how hard we try, we can only do our duty. We can only do our part. But what will we gain? So we'll gain, during that process, we'll try to improve ourselves. So it'll be, we'll be more matured, more closer to truth. So that's all we can do. Sometimes we see a lot of unfortunate things in the world going on now. But does that mean it was not there in the past? No, there was a lot more, probably more. Will there be more in the future? Possibly, yes. So it will be there all the time, no matter how hard we try. But should we be just keeping quiet and do nothing? No. We should, as Bhagavan Shri Krishna taught us, we should do our duty. We should do whatever we can, but more to help ourselves. We'll be improving. We'll be getting peace. Thank you.
If I may, yes. If I may, we're living in times where conflict is every day, on steroids, and it's almost been normalized. And religion has a responsibility, and faith leaders have a responsibility to remind us of not only what's right, but of what our potential is and what is natural. You know, the word sin in Greek, you hear the word sin and you break down and say, oh, that's a negative thing. But in fact, in the original Greek, amartia, it means to miss the mark. Okay? It means 3 broken relationships. It means a broken relationship with oneself, a broken relationship with our neighbor, and a broken relationship with the divine. And what religion is trying to do is help us to reintegrate and have a healthy relationship with the self so that we can have a relationship with one another, and all of this fueled by the relationship with the divine. It is not natural to be alienated from the other. And when we're alienated from the other, we demonize the other. And that's conflict. And this is not, I don't think, the will of any divine essence or being or God. So that would be my response to you.
Michael, is it the essence of conflict? Let's not be solipsistic here. Is it the essence of conflict that we make that lapse, that mistake of creating the opponent into an other?
By creating the other and demonizing, if you're not in communion or community, then the person is the other. It's interesting because in ancient Greek philosophy, there was the dialogue, okay? And Swami, you can touch on this a little too. The Greek word for the person who takes themselves out of dialogue is the idios, oidios, the idiot. When we take ourselves out and we isolate ourselves, and let's give ourselves a little bit of a break too, because we are not only living in this reality now, but for several years during a global pandemic, we were isolated from one another. This was not a natural state. And now we're just starting to become reintegrated. And we have to also take into account what that common experience, which not just the people under this tent experience, but the people under the greater tent of the globe experience too. We are recovering, if you will, from isolation. And now we're doing it at a time, in this country at least, where polarization I don't think has been at a greater high.
Maharaj, let me follow up with a question to you on this subject. Is there something in American history and in the American experience that equips us uniquely to address these issues of inner peace and world peace?
Yeah, so I just, why was it that America could recognize a man like Vivekananda, who brought in the last decade of 19th century a totally new religious tradition, a total stranger to this country, looked different, talked different, dress code, food, everything different. But when he concluded his Chicago address, which would have lasted perhaps about 8 minutes or slightly less than 8 minutes, that made him a celebrity. We can say, well, Emerson, Thoreau, Whitman, and the Transcendentalists are already prepared the landscape ready for a universal understanding, description of religious tradition. And think of those days, America, at least the east coast of America, the eastern seaboard region was quite familiar with what is happening in Europe. Karl Marx, Communist Manifesto, and Engels, and the Das Kapital already published in 1850s. And Darwin had already published his Origin of Species in 1854. And so people were asking questions. They were questioning creationism. They were trying to question the very foundations of Abrahamic religions. And Vivekananda came and he defined religion as something that goes beyond rituals, dogmas, belief systems, and the idea of a God, an omnipotent male God, creating this world and dividing humanity into conflicting groups of believers and non-believers, and threatening the non-believers with hellfire and rewarding, promising the believers with heaven. No, people were looking for a different religion which had a slightly more universal idea. And Vivekananda came. And then he said, this universal idea is already in your own Christian tradition, your own Buddhist tradition, your own Jewish tradition, your own Zoroastrian tradition. It's not a monopoly of Hinduism. So that was a great awakening for America. So again, America was happily free from the baggage of the cultural heritage of Europe. They still call it old Europe, not in a very complimentary language. Europe, of course, America is nothing but a new incarnation of Europe in many ways. Europeans came and built up this country. But America minus European cultural conservatism was a very happy phenomenon, which was the real explanation for Americans accepting Vedanta without any question. I can give you a counter example. The same Vivekananda went to London, gave a talk there in London. So there were some members of British nobility, English nobility, who were listening to the lecture. In that small room, not too many people, 25, 30 people, there was one lady, Miss Margaret Noble, Sister Nivedita, who later became the greatest Western disciple of Vivekananda was a five-brained Irish lady born in Northern Ireland. She was a Catholic. She became the most devoted disciple. It's called Nivedita, means the dedicated one. So, but then, as they were leaving that hall, they said, "Oh, there is nothing so spectacular about this talk." They were not impressed, except this lady, Miss Margaret Noble. England did not, in many ways, celebrate Vivekananda. Though Swamiji expected that, it didn't happen. It was America that accepted Swami Vivekananda. I can give you another example. It's a very thrilling example. Dr. Henry Burroughs writes in his books about the reactions of American audience, between 4,000 and 6,000 people listening to the Chicago Parliament Religion lectures. There was one P.C. Majumdar, Pratap Chandra Majumdar, who was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, who had seen Vivekananda when he was a student in Scottish Church College. P.C. Majumdar concluded his speech in Chicago. He came as a representative of Brahma Samaj, calling on American missionaries to come to India and convert the entire nation to Christianity. This is how a Hindu, who was a member of a Reformed Hindu church, Brahma Samaj, concluded his speech in Chicago. Americans did not appreciate him. That's very interesting. Americans did not appreciate an Indian coming here and asking American missionaries to go and convert the whole Indian population to Christianity, because they didn't like that sort of thing. Maybe it would have been admired by in Europe, but not in America. But Americans appreciated Vivekananda, who did not do any of this sort of trying to appease the audience. Vivekananda, while expressing great admiration for Christ and his spiritual heritage, he had no kind words about the activities of the missionaries. He criticized them. Americans did not mind that. They didn't dislike the way Swamiji expressed his lack of appreciation for the evangelical overdrive that is happening in Europe, in India. But America, so there was something essentially noble and broad-minded, and then a willingness to accept great ideas from anywhere in the world, if that is good for humanity. It was there in Europe also, but European cultural conservatism, I'm a German, I'm a Frenchman, that sort of thing. In India also, I'm an Indian. But America didn't have that kind of cultural or nationalistic conservatism, at least in the later half of 19th century. That is the time when Lincoln had already passed away. America had already fought the Civil War. America was opening up, and people were discovering new. They appreciating the new discoveries coming from Europe. So it was a very fertile soil for spreading any universal message. So again, I don't say this is the part of the American system, administrative system. This is the essential part of a typical American mindset. In their total disregard for conservatism, there is also this open spirit. Well, all right, I will take it, I will try. They will try out. Even now they try out mindfulness in the morning. They try out Buddhism in the evening. In the afternoon, they try out Vedanta. In between, they go to Greek Orthodox Church, Roman Catholic Church, everything. Maybe behind this apparent superficiality and this adventurism, there is also an element of broad-mindedness and willingness to accept and try out something new coming from anywhere in the world. That's the real explanation, eh?
Michael Pappas, just to prove that these things go in cycles, when you think that it's maybe not the case and it's likely to come back, Michael, if I may share what you said about your various generations in your family. Some of them were eager to speak English, and then your daughter, right?
Yes, my daughter's 25, and I asked her out of curiosity because she's become very Greek, and I said, you know, your closest tie with being Greek is your great-grandmother and great-grandfather, whom you never met. I said, you don't speak, read, or write the language. You don't own property, and you have no intention of serving in the military there. What is it? And she said, it's community. And indeed, I think that we all long for community. It's something innate in us. What I wanted to do, though, because the Swami hit on something very important, is I wanted to share with you, I mean, you can tell a lot about people by what they profess. Before we meet, you know, we have a monthly breakfast. We read this very brief statement. This is an interfaith community. Whatever our individual belief, it can be freely expressed here with no apologies. If we are invited to offer a prayer in this setting, it should be offered according to the tradition with which we identify. If we are invited to speak on a subject from the perspective of our tradition, we are free to do so without fear of offending those who come from another tradition. We come together as people of faith to learn from each other, that we might better understand the multiplicity of faith traditions in our city and in our world. This is the premise of our interfaith work, is to learn from one another. Not to be threatened by one another, but by setting these ground rules, by setting these parameters, we give permission to people to be their authentic selves. The worst thing that can happen in interfaith work is watering down who you are or being ashamed of who you are. It doesn't do it justice. Mm-hmm. We come to learn from one another. I came here today and I'm going to leave with a better appreciation and a better understanding of Hinduism. And I want to thank you all, and I want to thank the Swami in particular and Dr. Gupta. And through your hospitality, I've learned so much. And so, as we say to one another, be yourselves, be your authentic selves, so that we can learn and be enriched by it.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Of course, there are varieties of Hinduism, and we learn from each other too. There's a question in the back. I have a follow-up question, but let's get that audience question.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. I had a question about, you mentioned a lot of young people not knowing their selves, and that was part of the problem for a lot of unhappiness. My question is the importance of the knowledge of our true selves and the divinity underlying all of us and everything, and that knowledge of our true selves, and then the distinction of maybe the lesser reality of everything in the world, so the viveka and vairagya. Is this knowledge, this true, if we are able to communicate this true knowledge or learn of this true knowledge, will this help us then create some liberation and therefore respond to the world with more compassion and understanding and responsibility? So the importance of that knowledge, and how important is that message in general, is that's this inner peace, potential inner peace, is that a primary importance, in your opinion, dealing with lots of young people?
Yeah.
So the question for Professor Gupta is, does self-knowledge, is that the first step, prerequisite?
100%. So one thing is, you mentioned the knowledge, but I just want to follow up one thing is, it's not like a knowledge of a thing. It's not like a knowledge of a book or a paper or a pencil. This knowledge is you, it's yourself. So once you know this knowledge, it is you. And once you identify with that knowledge, and once you become that, yes, so you are in peace. So and you will transmit that throughout the world. So absolutely. So once you attain that knowledge, attain in a figurative sense, because you are that already. So Vedanta says that the only thing that separates you from the knowledge is your ignorance. You don't know what you are. Again, there are so many examples, and I'm sure many of you are aware of this. So suppose I'm wearing a necklace and somehow I forgot about it. And I'm wandering around and trying to find the necklace, and somebody points out that there is a necklace. Now, did you really find it? No, it was already with you. So somebody just pointed to you, and you are that. I mean, you already have that. So once we have that, we can. I mean, we are that peace. We are that bliss. So yes. I don't know. I answered your question, but yeah. Thank you.
Next question, please.
I have a question.
Oh, there's a question there, and Ramesh Kapadi in front next after this.
Is there any way we can separate religion from politics? I remember Swamiji, when he made this movement, Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement, he deliberately says that no politics in my religions.
Well,
But
we're
in
doing
the
it right
West,
now.
I see these political and religious for last 2,000 years, this going on and on and on, and fighting, and is there any way, is there any attempt made to make it separate, or no?
Aristotle said where people are gathered, there's politics. And interestingly, I mean, the message of religion is revolutionary because it tends to go against what are secular norms.
The microphone.
Was like, okay, here we go. And I look in particular at the historic black church in the United States, where there is no other forum to be together to talk about civil rights. It's there at the pulpit. Dr. King was a pastor. So I would say the question is religion being used for good, or is it being used to manipulate? And so I think that is really the question, if I were to answer your question.
I want to add that I commend to you a rereading of the Declaration of Independence. Declaration of Independence tackles this exact subject from an American perspective that's still applicable today. Is there a higher law, a higher politics, a higher humanism that helps to inform our responses as a society in ways that transcend conventional politics? The founders of this country expressed it particularly well, influenced by the Enlightenment thinking, which of course is also influenced by the Vedas.
So just one thing, I just remember recently in India, in some part, there was some political movement, and Ramakrishna Mission was asked why they're not commenting on that. Our General Secretary's comment was amazing. He said that, politics deal with the temporary things, so whatever is in what we are seeing now. But religion is on eternal things, so they don't really mix together that well. So,
If I may, I was scratching my head about 9 months ago, almost a year. I got a call from the Friends of the Urban Forest. And they said, Michael, you're not going to believe this, but in the Biden infrastructure bill, there was a line item there for interfaith tree planting. Would you like to partner? Now, we're all about cross-sector partnerships, and it was planting trees in vulnerable neighborhoods. They gave me the map, and we were sitting on pins and needles because everything that the Biden administration did, the Trump administration was negating. So we were waiting for this to go away for probably 3 or 4 months. Strangely, it didn't go away. And we committed to planting 60 trees in 12 tree plantings in 12 vulnerable neighborhoods. I've gone out to some of these plantings, and it's a fascinating thing. The congregation will be the sort of anchor, but they're working with the neighborhood associations and other groups within the neighborhood to do something really good. And I've never seen such a good spirit. And again, here, not talking about religion, we're planting trees for the next generation and beyond. So sometimes politics and religion can be okay.
One moment. You know, Michael Pappas referred to the origins of the Interfaith Council. And I was there in San Francisco during the time of the Loma Prieta earthquake. The council was already in formation, but also then coalesced to do services. For those of you who weren't there, it was a beautiful, beautiful coming together around common need and common purpose and common love. It had nothing to do with politics. It was human nature in action, and we're still reaping the benefits of the Interfaith Council.
And arguably, City Hall called us into existence because there is an expectation, if something bad happens, that religion is going to be there with their doors open to help. If there's an earthquake, the expectation is that houses of worship are going to be offering respite, they're going to be offering food, they're going to be offering pastoral counseling. And so, I mean, I tell our folks, get prepared, because that's the expectation of city government.
And that mayor, mutual friend of ours, was trained as a social worker, which I think is a good preparation for a mayor.
And he knew how to use guilt effectively.
Swami.
So, you know, if you interpret religion as spirituality, then you get a introspective, a subjective, spiritual, experience-oriented version of religion. It is your own inner life, your own inner peace, your own direct communion with God. That is the spiritual experience aspect of religion. Then religion, as we normally understand, it cannot be totally separated from society, nation, social activism, and so on, because religion can be a blessing when the religious practitioners understand that its essence is spirituality. Otherwise, it can be a problem at every phase.
Thank you. Before we get to the last question, which is bring the mic around the front to Ramesh, I want to do a little lightning round, because I'm dying to ask this question, and it's practical Vedanta. Practical Vedanta. So that is, let's say that you're there and you're asking yourself, okay, I'm going to try to exemplify inner peace, and that's going to help address my hunger for world peace. But the fact of the matter is that there's conflict in my family and in my workplace, and my dog barks and my cat scratches, and there's aggression on the road, and and I value peace more than that, but practically speaking, it's a little hard in the day-to-day. So there is that science of philosophy, axiology, which is measuring the value of things. I'm going to direct it to Professor Gupta first because he's the mathematician. So we want to, how, in practical terms, do we act on the value we have for peace?
How many theorems?
Yeah, no matter how many theorems we learn, we cannot solve that problem. So
what should we do when we're faced with the issue, with the conflict?
So I guess the answer would be, like my answer would be, we can try to implement our knowledge of Vedanta, and we can try to think that no matter what we are seeing or what we are doing, it's temporary. Well, again, just a background. So I go to, I'm in New York, so we go to the West Center Vedanta Society, which is Swami Tattwamayananda's center. And he gives a very nice example. Like he says that Vedanta does FIR. So it's sort of, what it does is, it can be coded as FIR. So what is FIR? So it reduces the F. So F means frequency. So you get impacted by the world, right? So most of the time we are pretty much offended by most of everything. But what Vedanta does is it reduces it. It reduces the frequency. What is I? I is the intensity. It reduces the intensity. So we'll still be impacted unless we are Jivan Mukta, unless we are liberated. But it will be reducing the impact and the intensity. And what is R? So R is basically the reduction of the, it's a continuation of the reduction. So, and also it will be reducing the reaction. What he mentions is, we'll be changing from what to so what. So that's the reaction is changed. Yeah. Thank you.
I will, where I ended my talk today was this interfaith anthem, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. We can't change one another, but we can change ourselves and we can work on ourselves. And if we acquire that inner peace ourselves, it can be contagious.
You know, there's nothing more contagious than singing together, you know. It's hard to stay mad at somebody if you're trying to form a chord, harmony, you know.
When you're singing, you're not talking.
Exactly. Maharaj?
No,
do we walk away?
Yeah,
do we walk away from conflicts like that?
Yeah. So,
okay.
We had to
All right.
conclude now.
So,
Ramesh will have the last question.
Last
then we go to
question,
music.
Ramesh?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Help's on the way.
Can you hear me now?
I think so.
We can hear you.
I'll repeat the question.
Anyway, so I think the question is that in this today's technological, very competitive world, every place there is so much of competition on everything. And religions are no different than that. They also like to get the fair market share, what they call corporate world. So how do you promote the harmony when you are competing and try to compete in all this? And so what will be your equation from each perspective of each of you, that how do you promote the harmony among this competitive world and without stepping on somebody else's toe?
Well, very quickly, to me, we are all walking the same walk. Like we are going to the same goal. We are all trying to be happy. We are all trying to get that happiness in this life. So maybe we are approaching through different paths, but we are going to the same goal. So if we understand that and if we acknowledge that, I think that is enough. So we'll not step into anyone else.
At what cost? You're achieving your happiness.
So again, to quote Sri Ramakrishna, I think as long as we understand that all the religions are just the paths, it's not the destination, it's not the goal.
Yeah.
May I answer with a story? There was a father who did very well for himself financially, but he had 5 children, and each of them were at each other's throats. He's on his deathbed now, and he said, as successful as I've been in life, I have not been successful because my children have been at war with each other. So he lived out in the middle of a forest, and he told his youngest son to go bring 10 branches back. And so the son did it. They thought he was out of his mind, but the son comes back with his branches, and he says, now, the father says, now give one to each of your siblings, just one. So there were 5 of those branches, and he told them from the youngest to the oldest to break them. And they were easily to be broken. Then he said to the youngest, now go collect the other 5 branches, and here's some twine, put them together. Try to break them now. The real issue is, I see in San Francisco at least, where there's an injustice, where there's a human rights or a civil rights violation, people of different faiths are not competing to say who's better at doing injustice, who's doing it better at civil rights. They rely on one another because together, solidly together, you can't be broken.
I want to say with some certainty in answer to that question, that in my experience, not just wishful thinking, not just belief, but actual experience in business and management leadership, if you want to fail in business and life, by all means, be ruthless and selfish, doomed to fail. That goes for corporations too. All right, I think that wraps up the Q&A right on time.